In 2019, Chinese President Xi Jinping met Prime Minister Narendra Modi for their second informal summit in Chennai. 2019 was also the year in which Chinese investments into India peaked in terms of number of transactions, 527. The peak year in terms of investment amount was 2015, 859 million US dollars. But then the Galwan clash happened and India's reaction was to ban hundreds of Chinese apps. TikTok, Shein and hordes of other apps left Indian mobile screens. India placed restrictions on investments from countries sharing a land border with the country. A government press release said this was aimed at preventing opportunistic takeovers of Indian companies due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But then it was impossible to ignore the fact that it came at a time when China had made inroads into eastern Ladakh. Despite all this, India-China trade continued to grow, and in 2023 to 2024, it touched $113.8 billion, making China India's largest trading partner ahead of the United States. But there was a huge imbalance in this. India exported just $16 billion worth of goods and imported $101.7 billion. India tried to reduce its dependence on China, and one method was tariffs. But the higher tariffs are affecting Indian businesses. A lot of Chinese goods are not directly consumed in India. So if the inputs become more expensive, the production costs go up and the final product becomes costly and uncompetitive. So the easy way out is to ease the tariffs, but there's a catch. India's heavy dependence on China. India remains heavily reliant on China for critical products like telecom parts, pharmaceutical ingredients, and advanced technology components. The trade gap with China widened to 28% in April to December 2022 from the same period a year earlier. This was because India's domestic demand continued to support Chinese imports while COVID lockdowns in China crimped India's exports to China. This trade is stacked in China's favor. But there are some indications of a rethink on the issue. A day before Union Budget 2024-25, the government announced a reduction in the import duty for components used in the manufacturing of mobile phones from 15% to 10%. This perhaps is the right approach. Erecting high tariff walls allows inefficient domestic players to survive and hurts consumers. But now India and China have reached an agreement on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. All the focus is on the situation at the border. But what's also at stake here is the trade relationship between the two countries. According to a study by Oxford, India's attempts at boosting its manufacturing sector by capitalizing on the US-China trade war have fallen short. The reason? Other Asian rivals are benefiting to a much greater extent from escalating tensions between the US and China. So considering this, can the latest truce help India improve its exports to China? Also, will it open the door to execute the economic survey's call for seeking enhanced FDI from China? The economic survey said that increased FDI inflows from China can help increase India's global supply chain participation and push exports. It said India faces two choices to benefit from China Plus One strategy, either to integrate into China's supply chain or promote FDI from China. In India's total FDI inflow during April 2000 to March 2024, China had a 0.37% share with $2.5 billion and stood at the 22nd position. Will India's trade position with China see a turnaround? Let's see if the next few weeks shed some light on this.